Hello and welcome to another episode of the Selfish Podcast. Today we have George Siegal, and I am excited and interested to get to know him and his life and story. So first, George, can you just tell me where in the world are you and what time of day is it for you?
I am in Tampa, Florida, and it is 11:05 in
Nice.
the morning.
Nice. I get a lot of American guests, and it's always early in the morning for them and evening time for me. Here in the south of Spain, it's 5 p.m. And yeah, I think in South Florida, you must have weather similar to me right now. It's getting hot. Is it hot there?
It's very hot and humid.
Yeah, nice. We actually came in contact through a Facebook group about podcasts, and you have your own podcasts and you do film work, and really excited to hear more about that. But first, I'd love to hear more about your childhood and your life. Can you paint me a picture of what life was like for you pre 10 years old?
I think I had a pretty good childhood. I went to a lot of different elementary schools because we moved a lot. So I think I went to 5 elementary schools. We lived on the East Coast at that time in places like Connecticut and Vermont. And it was just really great places for a kid to grow up. I mean, a lot of fun. I have really good memories about it.
Oh, nice. And what was school like for you?
It was okay. I think I got used to moving, so it didn't really bother me. Being the new kid wasn't a bad thing. And there was, I don't remember anything bad about it. Sometimes you have flash memories of things that weren't really good when you were growing up. And when I look back at that time, it was a real happy time to grow up.
Oh, nice. And what did you have brothers, sisters, and what did your parents do for a living?
I had 2 sisters. And my dad was, he was in broadcasting. Initially, he worked for IBM and ran their broadcasting division and was involved with that. And then he went off on his own and started managing and owning TV stations. So that's one of the reasons we were moving. My mom was a trained speech therapist, but gave up her career to be a full-time mom. And, so if we speak well at all as human beings, it's because we not only had a great mom, we had a speech therapist as a mom. So we weren't allowed to speak bad. We had to learn proper English, which I don't always nail, but I try to come close.
Yeah, nice. And do you remember like your first ambition or desire or something you wanted to do, be or become when you was really young?
I don't think it was before 10. I mean, it was silly careers. I wanted to be a garbage man. I wanted to be, things that, because you just see it and it looks cool as you're a kid driving a truck, stuff like that. It wasn't until I was in my teens that I realized I wanted to be, doing something with communications or broadcasting. So the first 10 years, I didn't really have anything I was aiming towards.
Yeah, just whatever, like you said, whatever took your eye and you thought that looks fun. Like you say, you can see the
Yes.
garbage truck, people hanging on the back, flying along. And when you're young, you go, yeah, I'm tired of sitting in
I
this
know.
thing.
Looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice. And what comes to mind first? Not necessarily what was the first, but what comes to mind first when I say what's a struggle that happened early in your life?
Gosh, I don't think there were a lot of struggles up until 10. I mean, if we take it beyond there, yeah, I'm sure there's, when you talk about teenagers, I'm sure we can bring up a lot of stuff. But those early years, I didn't really feel a lot of struggles.
So what one, if any, comes to mind at any age?
Um, Gosh, I think, okay, one of them I can think of. My mom, when she was growing up, went to Sleepaway Camp a lot, and she wanted us to get into doing that. And it wasn't something I wanted to do. I was not into camping of any sort. So I just didn't want to go and do that. So I can remember that clearly.
So what's the Sleepaway? What can you, because I'm not, it sounds like camping, but yeah, what exactly is that?
Where you go off with a group and maybe you go away to camp for 2 weeks, and, maybe you're living in cabins, maybe you're sleeping out in the woods. I don't know, because I didn't go.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because my oldest son now loves camping, and he certainly did not get that from me. Yeah. Because my idea of camping is a 3-star hotel, not not sleeping outside.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I've only got from sort of TV and films. Like it always shows the American, the summer camps, and going out there to. That's not a part of. If we did go camping in the UK, it was like with your parents in a camper van or something like that. But that idea of these big groups, I imagine it does happen, but it wasn't. I don't know anyone that went to a summer camp. But it seems to be quite a big thing in America.
It's a big thing here. Yeah, a lot of people like to do it.
Oh, nice. What turned you to, and if that is your main passion now, what turned you to the sort of, because like you said, your father was doing broadcasting. What put you in that communication direction and to where you are now?
Well, I thought it was something that I could be good at. I thought I was really, when I was in high school, I would try to audition for a lot of plays, and I'd always write little skits and sketches, and try to be a funny kid. And so I thought it was something that I had potential to do. If I would have liked to have gone to law school, but I was not a great student, and that was a really high bar to try to accomplish that. So broadcasting seemed like a great way to communicate. I grew up watching a lot of TV news. I thought that would be a fun business to go into, and that I could do well at it. So it's just something I thought I could naturally succeed at.
Yeah, and was that your, say, first career, or did you work through many different things to get to what you're doing now, or is it even now sort of a side hustle?
Well, I had a lot of jobs, odd jobs going through high school and college. When I got out, I wasn't able to land a broadcasting job right away. Those are not easy to get. So while I was doing that, I tried selling radio advertising, and I was terrible at it because I'm not a good salesman. The number one thing I hear salesmen say is, no does not mean no. It just means not now. It's like, okay, that once somebody says no, that's where the sale begins. But if somebody says no to me, I'm like, okay, you're not interested, I'll move on. And that's not really the right attitude for being a salesman. And I don't like it when people try to sell me, and once I've said no, that's it. We're done. But the salesmen that keep trying to then find another way to weasel their way in and get you to buy something really turns me off. It's not my thing. So I was terrible at it. And then eventually I got my first job in broadcasting, and then that just kind of set the course that I went on.
Oh, nice. And yeah, I saw, and you done the apologies, I won't get the name right now, but there was a film you done. And can you just say the name of your company again? Like your
my company right now is Move the World Films.
Yeah, because that interested me when I saw it on there on your email. So it instantly got my attention, because it sounds like someone's got some passion there. So where did that link into? You wanted to communicate and broadcast, create films, but you want to make a difference. How did that synchronize?
Well, when I was growing up, my dad used to always tell me this expression. He would say, "Give me a lever big enough and I could move the world." And it was, I think, a quote of Archimedes from some ancient time quote. And so when I was thinking of a name for my film company, it's like, okay, let's try to move the world. And so the logo, which is an animated logo, is two people with a large lever trying to move the world. And you see them just move it just a little bit. And so that became the motivation for the direction of projects I wanted to do, where I didn't want to make a statement. This isn't a film that George believes in. This is what George wants you to believe. It's like, here are the facts. This is something important, and you need to do something about it. And I looked at it as, if we can accomplish a little bit of that and just nudge things a little bit, we can move the world. And that was the theme behind the name of the film company. And it was also originally the name of my podcast. But as I was finding out in the podcast world, it was so broad that I tried to narrow it down a little bit. And that's when I changed the name to Tell Us How to Make It Better, because that's pretty self-explanatory. It's like, hey, tell us how to make it better. There's a problem. Tell us how to fix it. So I like things that are direct. I don't like, having to throw something out there that's a deep thinking kind of thing where people have to go, what does that mean? Let's think about this for a while. I like it to be pretty obvious. You look at that, you get it. Hey, he's making films, doing a podcast, trying to fix problems. So I don't want people to spend a lot of time thinking about what they're doing. I just want them to do it.
Yeah, nice. That makes sense to me. And so with your films, and what was your, say, debut first real project that you got out there?
The first one was called License to Parent. And that was about the parenting problem that I think exists, not just in this country, but worldwide, where I think people get the job of being a parent without any understanding of what's really involved with that job. And I always tell people, if you had to fill out an application to get the job of being a parent, do you think they would give you kids? And I bet if there was a process and you really did have to get a license, a lot of people would walk out of there without children. And I think bad parenting is a real problem in society. When people raise children and they're not doing a good job, they can end up with bullies, drug addicts, criminals, you name it. They can put some really bad people into society. And although I don't believe in overreach of telling people what they have to do with their children, once their children start leaving a thumbprint on society, whether it's good or bad, the parents have something to do with that. And I just think that ultimately the idea behind that film is not to license parents, although that's not a bad idea, but it'll never happen. The idea is give parents more support, give them more education, give them an understanding of what's involved with that job, and try to help give them resources if they're struggling so they can be better at the job. Because if we just leave people on their own and don't at least offer to help them, we have a lot of problems. And we just see so many examples in the news, not just here, but all over the world of just horrendous jobs of parenting. And it's not always the parent's fault. Okay, you have some kid goes out and does something horrible. It's not always the parent's fault, but in many instances, you could trace it back to bad parenting. And I wanted to make a difference in that area. Yeah,
no, it's interesting. And like I said, it's a very sensitive topic, shall I say, that a lot of people could find might make them feel a certain way, either side of their own belief system on parenting. But like you said, it's if you wanted to become a foster parent or you wanted to adopt a child, you have to tick a lot of boxes, should I say. There's a lot of criteria that you have to pass in order to be in that position. It's not like you can just go down there and pick a child and go, that's mine, in the same way you sort of can to have a child. And how was that received from like the people that saw it, but how was that perceived like with your own family?
I don't think, my family didn't really have an opinion about it one way or another, but you brought up an interesting point. It's like when somebody comes to the United States and they want to, if they're an immigrant and they want to become a citizen, they go through a long process to become a citizen. And I would argue that they know more about the United States than people who were here originally and grew up here or were just naturally citizens, because they take that for granted. They don't really have to learn that much. And it's the same thing with parenting. And so I think parental education, if there was more education for anybody that was thinking of reproducing, that would be huge. And you brought up another thing. It's like, do people get offended by this? It's a sensitive topic. If you get offended by it, you're the parents that I think are part of the problem. Because part of being a good parent is being open to hearing what's going on and then adjusting on the fly to the problem. So for example, if I have a parent approach me about something my children are doing, I'm not instantly angry at that other parent like some parents are. Like, how do you say that about my little angel? It's, tell me what's going on. What did my kid do? What can I do to try to fix this problem? And I think that parents have to be open to understanding that their child's not perfect, and it's a process. Every day it's a different, the ball keeps moving, and you have to put some effort in to be good at it. And I'm not claiming to be a great parent, but I'm an open-minded parent where I know I can be better, and I'm always interested in becoming better at it.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. Like, I'm not a parent yet, but with what you just said then, like when you have an awareness, like when I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one responsible for my life and my choices, my decisions, and realizing that I could objectively reflect on decisions or experiences that I didn't do in the most optimum way, shall I say. So you can calibrate and move forward and go in a different direction. And when you're a parent, I think there's a humbleness to go, okay, yeah, I may have done that in this sort of way, but I've now, like you said, been open to recalibrate, learn, and move forwards rather than keep repeating them structures of stubbornness.
Absolutely. And if nobody's constantly, offering you resources to get better, and, a lot of parents have it very difficult. There's a lot of parents that are, both parents are working. Maybe they're working 2 jobs. Maybe they can't be there as much as they want to be. They need support as much as, if not more than anybody, just to know that community cares about them. And again, none of this is about government overreach. I'm completely against that. I'm for making resources available that people can take advantage of, and for the community caring about how those children come out in a positive way, not in a negative way.
Yeah, as soon as you just sort of took the words from my mouth when you said community, like, I'm not for the overreach of, say, the government, the state, or any big organization. It's like there's already a community of people there, and they should be in a supporting structure to want the best for themselves and everybody else in that community. And to offer these sort of things. And like when I was young, I had a really bizarre and traumatic childhood. So there was no real structure or any support that I was aware of or was made to me in my childhood. And who knows what difference it would have made. Or like I said, I don't go back in time and think, oh, if or should have or could have. But I look at other children and think, well, if that was to happen now, these children would have been supported differently and maybe made some different choices that would be better for them.
Absolutely. And I'm not in favor of the government or school districts or anybody taking control of what children should be doing. I think it's ultimately the parents' job to raise their children, and they should have the final say. 100%, I believe that. But I think we have to make more options available to them for those and I think any parent could take advantage of it, is just so they can be on top of their game and do the best job that they can. And I just don't think that happens on a regular basis.
Yeah. So what after that film, what did you move on to after?
Well, the next film was called The Last House Standing. And it's about how we blindly choose where to live and what to live in without truly understanding the consequences. And so, if you watch hurricane season in the United States, every year you see houses getting flooded, washed away, blown down, burned down, damaged in earthquake, wiped out by tornadoes. And there's common themes to every story of people didn't have the right insurance. They didn't know how safe their house was. They didn't know about the local hazards. You name it. So the idea of that film is your goal is to be the last house standing. And you, as the person buying that house, need to do everything that you can to make sure you're buying a safe house and a house that your family will be safe in, and that you're doing everything you can to protect it. But most people don't. They're more concerned. If it was a cake, they're more concerned about the icing on the cake than they are about what the ingredients are. Mm-hmm. So somebody could probably tell you what kind of countertops they have and what kind of flooring they have. But if you said, well, how are your walls bracketed to your roof? Is your air conditioning unit elevated? Do you have a generator? You start asking them questions that are life or death about their house. They probably have no idea. And I think that's a huge problem because we keep making this. It's like Groundhog Day. You keep making the same mistake over and over and over again without anything really changing. And there are things that are going on to change it. There are people that are building better houses there's government there's groups in each city and state that do things to prepare and hopefully make things safer in the event of a disaster. But most people don't know about that. And there's a long way to go to make this a better issue.
Yeah. And I always found it fascinating, even when I was younger, that people, they're born somewhere and sometimes generation after generation have all been in that same area. Like they haven't actually migrated in any large way. And a lot of these places where there's annual disasters that happen in the areas, and like I said, their house can be lost, but they'll rebuild a house again in the same place, or they'll look for a house in the same thing. And I remember one of my friends I'm from the south of London. And I remember having a conversation to him and telling him like, that I can't wait for the day I've moved out of this town and this area and I'm somewhere. And he was like, he had never considered the possibility that was an option for him. And he was blown away by even trying to comprehend it. He's like, what do you mean move to another place? He goes, aren't you going to stay here, have kids here, and you'll always be here? I was like, no, why would I be? And we was having a conversation and I was blown away that he hadn't even ever thought about this. He was about 20 years old at the time or around that. And I was like, I've been thinking about this for a very long time.
Exactly. And, when I used to be in the news business and even growing up, I remember every year there would be flooding on the Mississippi River here in the United States. And then you'd see the interview with the family and they say, we're going to rebuild. We're going to put our house back. We're going to get our lives back together. And the question is, when something continues to go wrong in a specific area, should you be allowed to rebuild? Should you have to build to a higher standard in order for, to get any kind of assistance? Are you allowed to just keep making the same mistake? Because what happens is people make a choice and they don't necessarily understand the risk. But then when something bad happens, they're looking for other people to help them. They want the government to give them maybe a low interest loan. They want FEMA to come in and do something. They want all these resources. And at some point, you have to say, you live in a floodplain on a river. Here, sign this. You're on your own. And that's not to take generations of a family away, but at what point is something just a bad choice? One of the places we featured in our film is a place called Moore, Oklahoma, which over a span of, I think it was 10 or 15 years, had just numerous tornadoes. They had 4 major tornadoes that just kept wiping out parts of the city. And eventually, after all of that, they finally changed the building code. And now they're seeing less damage when a tornado does hit. If a major tornado barrels into your house, there's probably nothing you can do. At that point, you hope you had good insurance and a storm cellar so you're safe and your family is safe. But there's a lot of things you can do on the periphery of that storm where roofs were getting blown off, garages were getting blown in, and they actually changed the building code. But if you live in an area that floods, the government's giving you a heads up. Hey, your neighborhood floods. It's a flood zone. So if you keep getting flooded and damaged, whose responsibility should that be? It just raises an interesting question that, insurance rates are skyrocketing, property values are skyrocketing, but the same kind of damage keeps happening year after year.
Yeah, and I think what's important with the work that you do is I was talking to my love Danielle just the other day because her passion is very much towards animal welfare, and she was saying like, how can you do anything that will make a large difference? And to me, it boils down to 3 sort of core topics on it. It's like you can either change the laws and work in that direction and try and build in regulations. I said, but that's always going to cause resistance because you're going to be telling someone what to do rather than them being aware of a choice to make. And I said, or you create awareness. I said, because a lot of people already make good choices, but they have no awareness as to what's really happening in their world, because they've got their own issues and things that are happening. So I see your work and what you're putting out there, like you said, brings an awareness. And I think us innately, the reason we see problems is because we're the ones that create solutions. So the more we can see things and have awareness to it, the ones that can start to put together plans and organize and build a solution together. So no, I think it's important to bring that to people so they can just see things.
Well, the whole system is kind of rigged against homeowners because I don't know how it is over where you are. I mean, it looks like you're out in a field, but when we were first speaking, but when in this country, the real estate market's really hot. So if you go in and start demanding all these things and asking all these questions, they're probably just going to take the next person who's buying a house. So what happens is a lot of mediocre building is getting purchased by people who are desperate to buy a home in a certain area. And we're rewarding mediocrity because builders have an entire lobbying group that they want building standards to be as low as possible. And it's counterproductive for the people buying the house. I want a house that's as safe as possible. I don't want a guy that's cutting corners and shaving nickels to save money because it's not in my best interest. But most people don't drill down on that because they're afraid of not getting the property or it's too much of a hassle. And they also think it's not going to happen to them. They think that, it's not going to happen to me. My house isn't going to get wiped out. And inevitably, Mother Nature finds the weakest things and destroys them all the time. There's Mexico Beach, which we featured in our film, is an example of that. They had been around for generations and had never had a Category 5 hurricane like the one that wiped them out. And it hit them and just devastated them. And because they had such a low building standard, they had older properties there. And people just assume, they're going to miss, the storm's going to miss us again. And eventually it catches up to you.
Yeah, nice. Like you said, it's, the weather and the things are powerful. In England, you don't really get so much issues. We don't have hurricanes to any degree near the States. We don't have tornadoes. Flooding is rare. You get it a little bit more in the north. But down the south near London where I am, it's not really a thing you even hear about. But there is a lot of regulations on buildings, and if you buy a house and you want to make amendments and stuff, there's a lot of regulations and a lot of paperwork. But there's not so much of the natural disasters in the same way that you guys have it.
Oh yeah, if you look at a map of the United States, just the topography of it and the way that everything is laid out, there is a bullseye zone almost everywhere. Yeah. On the West Coast, you have earthquakes and you have wildfires, and that extends to the Rocky Mountains. And then down into the plains where you have tornadoes and you have, You can get powerful thunderstorms that wipe things out. Then you get hurricanes. You still, it's possible to get an earthquake in the middle part of the country. And then over to the East Coast with hurricanes and tornadoes and flooding and storm surge. And it's just built into the way is constructed. So people need to be aware of that. And I'm just amazed by how many people don't think about it. And that's what my goal was with the film. It's just kind of like a slap on the head. Hey, look, check this out. Watch the film. And then you decide if you can to protect what you have. If you can say yes, then go ahead and you're rolling the dice and hopefully you're going to be okay. I don't wish anything bad on anybody. But then when it does go bad, at least you'll know you were warned.
Yeah. And so speaking on that, where can someone go and watch your work?
There's a couple of ways to consume the film. One, you go to my website, which is thelasthousestanding.org. And on the website, you can rent the film for $3.99. Now, some people say, I don't want to pay anything to watch your film. Well, it's on a cable channel called Tubi, Tubi, and you can watch it for free on there. You have to sit through commercials. You have to, so that's the side that frustrates some people, but you can always get it on my website, and it's thelasthousestanding.org. And with hurricane season right around the corner, it's a great time to watch it, at least know what you're in for. And some reminders of things you might be able to do right now that could make a difference between, coming out okay or losing everything.
Yeah, no, and definitely, like, for anyone listening, it's to make projects like this, they're not cheap, and if you believe in something and you want to create, like you said, to move the world, it's going to cost some money, and that's not a lot of money. I remember the days we'd go to Blockbusters when I was a child, when that existed, and you'd spend a good few quid to buy a film that you only have for a couple of days, and that was normal because there wasn't such an availability of free material like there is now. So anyone hesitating, it's like, do you really need to hesitate so much?
Well, that's the funny thing about films. Is like people think you have the film, so now it's available, so everybody should be able to watch it. And that's great. I want everyone to see it. If somebody actually took the time to email me and said, George, I don't have $3.99, I'll send you a coupon to watch it for free. But, as a filmmaker, I'd be nice to recoup some of the money I spent making the film. And, it would be nice to generate something, because then I can do more advertising to have more people see it. But I would never let that stand in the way of somebody who really needed to see it. So, that's what I put out there. If you could say, I don't have the money or the resources or the interest in paying for it, reach out to me.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah, what I would like to know is, in that industry and what you're doing, how has the last 2 years affected that? And has it given you something new maybe to create?
Well, it's been challenging because it certainly stopped production or going out and shooting anything for a little while. I think things have kind of creeped back to normal here, but it certainly put a dent in it. And I think where it hurt us the most was we got in a lot of film festivals, but all those festivals were canceled. And so I didn't get the opportunity to go around and be in front of the film and talk to people about it. So crying about it because a lot of people got hurt a lot worse than me, but it would have been nice to have that stage and that opportunity for the film to be more successful, but it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah. Did they, because it wouldn't have been the same in any way, shape or form, but did they do like a virtual event and people try to watch it online? And
yeah, but that's crap, because what happens is it becomes a popularity contest for whoever has the most friends that are going to go in there and like their film to win the festival, as opposed to being the face of your film and be out there and have it shown to audiences that were coming in to see it. So it was a much different experience. And, I would have liked the other experience, but like I say, there's so many people that got it worse than me that it's hard to, I'm not one to sit and feel sorry for myself for very long.
Oh, nice. And do you have another project now that will be entering maybe a film festival in the next year or two?
Nothing right in the queue. I'm trying to get another film going. It's kind of an extension of The Last House Standing that will focus on other elements of that. And then, something taking up a fair amount of my time is the podcast that I started, which, there's so many people with podcasts, right? There's like 2 million people with podcasts, but it's fun and you get to interview a lot of interesting people. And so I'm enjoying doing that for now.
Yeah, so where can people find your podcast?
The podcast is called Tell Us How to Make It Better. And it's just put tellushowtomakeitbetter.com. And all the podcasts are on there that we've done. We've done 39 episodes so far. And the idea of that is similar to the theme in my films. It's, I don't like people that sit around and complain about problems. I like people that try to solve them. And that's what I try to do, is interview people who have recognized a problem with something and are doing something to make it better. So they're not complaining, they're telling us how to make it better. And I think it's an interesting concept, and, I'm plugging away at it, hoping to get it rolling.
Nice. And do you have like a schedule, like where? Because when I first started, it was August last year with my podcast, and I was like, I know being consistent is an important factor. So I was like, how often can I truly be consistent with everything else I've got going on? And I was like, do you know what? I think I can only do one episode a month, because I knew nothing about what I needed, how to get a guest. I didn't know what technology or software I needed. So I was like, do you know what? In a month, I can get one guest and have something out there. And I did that for a few months. Then I was like, do you know what? I can do 2 a month. And then I went to 1 every week. And then I went to, I can do 2 a week, which I've actually changed now because I've got just too many things going on. I was like, this takes a lot of time. So I was like, I'm going back down to 1 a week and switching it up a little bit. So how's your schedule with your podcast?
I'm doing 1 a week. And I think what I'm spinning my wheels with time on is trying to promote them. And so it can turn into something that's a full-time job that doesn't pay you anything. Because it's not just making one and throwing it out there to the universe. Then you have to put some effort in to try to get people to actually listen and consume what you're putting out there. And I find that takes more time than making the podcast, because making the podcast relies on skills that I've already developed. It's easy for me to sit down and interview somebody, throw the interview together in editing software, and upload it to the internet. That's the part that's very easy. Now, the other end of that, getting people to actually listen to it and spend time with you, is a bit more challenging.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best on that. I'm in a similar situation. Like mine was getting, only as of really the last few months have I been thinking, right now I need to concentrate more on the marketing. I've got a flow, I've got a direction, the structure's working, the guests are turning up, the content's valuable. And it's like, but now people need to know it exists a little bit more. And like you said, and it's a daily task of doing little things here and there consistently for a very small return at the moment, considering the amount of effort. Like you said, it's a full-time job that doesn't pay.
Yeah. And so you have to enjoy it. I think it's hard to do any job if you don't like what you're doing. And so the fact, if you enjoy it, and that's what a lot of people that are trying to do podcasts, they enjoy the aspect of communicating and talking to people. And I think that's a lot of it, because there's no guarantee you're ever going to make Joe Rogan money off of that. And unless you were born into royalty like Prince Harry, no one's going to hand you $25 million to not do a podcast. So you really have to, you have to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think if you're creating something that to your, say, core feels like it's got a lot of worth and valuable and is needed, then you should also enjoy marketing it, because you're not shoving something in someone's face that is a waste of their time. If you really believe, like, if you was to see this could have a benefit to you or your community, then it should be quite a nice process to actually let people know that exists.
Exactly. But it would be nice. And I know there's some people out there that claim they can help you grow your following and find it. But a lot of that ends up having bots on your website that aren't real people. So you may pay to have 200, 300, 1,000 people appear to have listened to your podcast, and then the following week they're never coming back. So it's finding people that will consume it on a regular basis that is the challenging aspect of it, because just having numbers without people behind those numbers doesn't really do much for you in the long run.
Yeah, no, you want a nice organic, like you said, a nice community, and then people are actually going to share it, talk about it, and it is going to make a difference. So it is
exactly
actually getting the real audience out there. And I found some of my most loyal sort of followers and people that are contributing to my mission and my cause are people that I've had as guests, because you end up having a nice conversation with them and they become more avid listeners than some of the people that you're trying to push it to.
Sure, absolutely. Because I find that to be true as well, because you go, wow, this person's really sharp. They have a lot to offer. So I try to check back in and listen to what they're doing more often.
All right. So now I know if you don't listen to my podcast, I'm not sharp.
You'll know if you don't see a new follower today. You'll know that I was just completely pulling your leg.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of the show. It's been really interesting and fascinating, and I really love what you're doing about just creating awareness and putting yourself out there to do so and trying to make that on a grand scale. I am passionate about the world of creation and influence, and movie making comes into that to a large degree. And I know what a task that is, and it's an uphill battle where you have to have a lot of resilience and willpower to persevere in it, because it's not an easy area to go.
Yeah, well, every aspect of making a film is challenging, and to be successful, you have to overcome all those challenges. You have to get the people to be in your film. You have to edit it. You have to put music in. You have to get graphics. There's a lot of pieces that go into a project, and when you're a small team, you don't have access like a major studio does, where there might be 500 people working on a project. I think we had 4. So but at the end, when you look at what you did, it's a great feeling to see that you've accomplished something, and then you now have to work on getting people to see it, so hopefully it can make a difference, which is challenging, but it's very rewarding.
Oh, nice. And I'll make sure for anyone that's listening, or if you're on YouTube, you can go into the description and follow the links to your website and all your details, so they can see what you're up to and what your projects are, and if they want to watch the film, they can.
That would be awesome, Luke. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just have the very last part of the show is just a few simple one-answer questions. Do you have a moment for them? It's the same questions for every guest. Can you choose one, a cat or a dog?
Dog.
What's your favorite color?
Silver.
What excites you in the simplest form?
Wow, that's a tougher one to answer. Watching sports.
And what does the opposite? What shuts you down?
Politics.
What sound or noise do you love?
Running water, like gentle running water.
Nice. And what sound or noise do you not love so much?
A gardener's blower.
That's really common from people in America. I've never had that issue from anyone else outside of America, but multiple guests have said leaf blowers and garden blowers. So
yep. And as when you're out shooting a film, inevitably wherever we go to shoot outside, there's somebody with a blower or a lawnmower that's really loud, and it creates audio challenges. So I hate it on multiple levels, listening to it in my house and then dealing with it in work.
What do you love about yourself?
Sense of humor.
Right. What do you love to see in other people?
I think a sense of humor. I think that's crucial.
Nice. And last question, what do you love about animals? This could be pets, wild animals, your choice.
What I love about them is that unconditional love that they have back if you just treat them well. It's a great feeling.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being here on the show and sharing yourself and your story and a little view into your life and what you do with it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to listening and to becoming a regular listener of your podcast.
All right, and I look forward to send me a message. I've got a lot I can say and share and jump on your podcast.
Absolutely.
Really interesting to go into more details in that, but drop me an email and we'll continue with that. So have a beautiful day. You've got the whole day ahead of you. So yeah, have a beautiful one.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, and chat to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Selfish Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and leave a review if you can. It really helps other people find the content. And if you gain something from this, maybe someone else will too. I truly appreciate you being here. I'm grateful for every single one of you. You inspire me to continue to create content on YouTube, podcasts, and as many platforms as I can online. So thank you so much. Big thank you to my patrons out there. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be online. If you'd like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/Lukegreenheart. All the links will be in the description. And don't forget, you can get my free copy of my book, The Self, Who Am I?, which gives clarity to identity and direction to your purpose through beautiful insights and perception. So go check that out. You can get it free at lukegreenheart.com/free. Remember, links in the description. It's also available as a paperback on Amazon. Have a beautiful day. I truly appreciate you. Love life, love yourself, love others. Thank you again for being here.